Wash your faces. وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ Wash your hands to your elbows. وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ Wipe your heads. وَأَرْجُلَكُمْ إِلَى الْكَعْبَيْنِ And wipe your feet. So each of these independent acts has been listed in a particular order. When Allah has listed them in order, then we will follow that order. That is how we follow the command of Allah. Footstep by footstep. When Allah lists one thing first, we do it first. When He lists the next thing, then we do the next thing. When He lists the third thing, we do that thing third. That's how deep our following of the command is of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this in essence is the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He followed the Quran to the T. This is something that we should keep in mind when we do the wudu. That we should keep these acts in order. Of course, it's only sunnah, so if you have to actually mix up the order, your wudu still occurs, but it's best to think about this ayah. And I always tell people, this is an ayah you should memorize. It's a very short ayah. I've recited it to you 4 or 5 times already, so now some of the words may be familiar to you. Just memorize this ayah. And when you sit and do the wudu, run the ayah through your head. So you reflect on the ayah, you recite the ayah. That's a beautiful interaction between you and the Holy Quran. And as you watch each part, think about what the ayah says. Now, the next sunnah is continuity. And what we mean by continuity is that you wash each part after the other. Allah commanded a sequence of parts, so you keep them in sequence and you keep that sequence together. You don't wash the face and then talk to your friend and then, clean your teeth a little bit and then wash the next part. No, you do it exactly in the order. One part's wet, continue to wash the next part. Continue to wash the next part. Keep in mind that this is a sunnah. It's not mandatory. So, for example, there may be times when you may want to break the sequence of the wudu for a few moments because of a secondary reason. For example, let's say you're at work. You're worried about co-workers coming in because it's kind of awkward for them to open the door and your foot's in the sink. So what do? You start washing all these different parts and all of a sudden somebody walks in. So you wait a couple moments for them to actually go into the stall or so that they can leave before you put your foot in the sink. That's fine. Your wudu will still occur. Now the next thing is repetition 3 times. So we said that the ayah of the Quran commands you to wash each body part. And that command is a single command which can be fulfilled by a single act. But washing 3 times is actually sunnah. And washing 3 times, not more and not less. We should try to wash each part 3 times because this guarantees us that we complete the action properly. So it's a way of making certain that the act actually occurs and that every part gets washed. But even more so, it's the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Now imagine a scenario where you wash a part 3 times and you're still not sure if you missed an area. In that case, you're allowed to wash a 4th time. But once you've washed 3 times and you're sure, you shouldn't become paranoid and say, I might have missed something small over here, and then keep washing it 5 more times. Because that's how shaitan gets to you. When shaitan, he comes to you and he'll start whispering to you, oh, you didn't do this right, oh, you didn't do that right. Once you fulfilled an act to the level of the sunnah, then be confident that inshallah it occurred. So once you see that you washed your body part and you're relatively sure, you don't need to go molecular and start saying, I didn't catch this one cell. You don't have to worry about that. You just wash 3 times according to the sunnah. And this is actually, there's hikmah in it because it's a means of avoiding waswasat. And perhaps we'll talk about that in one of the evening sessions, how to avoid the waswasat of shaitan. Also keep in mind that this condition is a sunnah, washing 3 times. So it too can fall in certain occasions. For example, you're at work and you don't want to stick your foot in the sink for, to wash 3 times because it's more likely someone will open the door and catch you. So then you just wash it 1 time and you wash it very well. But the point is you have to wash the foot and you got to wash it well. So again, you want to try to keep up with the sunnah, but if you personally are not able to handle that situation at work, then that's between you and your Lord. He knows you and you know Him, what He's required of you. And so you can do the best to your abilities. The next sunnah is rinsing the mouth to the back of the throat. Now keep in mind that I'm not listing these sunnah in order. I'm just randomly listing them, but I'll go through the wudu in order in a minute. So the next sunnah is to actually rinse the mouth to the back of the throat. And what this implies is that you actually take water and gargle it all the way to the back of the throat. Now this in and of itself is a sunnah, and you need to be careful in the month of Ramadan. You don't want to gargle too far back because if you swallow any of that water, you could potentially break your fast. So in the month of Ramadan, you want to take due care not to gargle too far back. But otherwise, you want to gargle fairly well and make sure that you get to the back of the throat. Another sunnah is rinsing the nose. Rinsing the nose back to the soft bone. And the same thing here, in the month of Ramadan, you don't want to push water beyond the soft bone because then it'll end up going back down to the throat. The nose is connected to the throat. So you have to be careful as well in this case. Another sunnah is to do khilal, to intersperse your fingers between the fingers so that you get these areas. You know, the web of your fingers, in between your fingers, you get these areas as well. So that's an independent sunnah within the wudu. Also, it's a sunnah to wipe in the beard. You take your hand when it's wet and you actually wipe through the beard if you have a thick beard. Another sunnah is to wipe the full head. Again, I told you 1/4 was farad, but the entire head is actually sunnah. And we know from hadith that the way the Prophet ﷺ used to wipe the entire head was the following manner, and this is related in both Bukhari and Muslim, from Abdullah ibn Zayd, in which he says that the Prophet ﷺ used to wipe like this. First he would go from the hairline over the top of the head to the back of the head, and then he would subsequently come forward with his palms over the temple area, so over the side of the head. So this is actually the sunnah of doing the entire head, and that covers the whole head. According to Imam Malik, the entire head is actually farad. And again, according to Imam Shafi, less than 1/4 of the head is farad. So there's variation, but in the end, when you perform the wudu according to the sunnah, all these differences are going to they become moot, because you'll have performed everything in perfection. Another sunnah is to rub the body parts, to make sure that the body parts get wet as you wash them. And another sunnah is to wipe the neck and to not wipe the throat. Because in hadith it's come that the person who wipes the back of his neck, he'll be protected from the ring of fire that goes around the neck on the Day of Judgment, or in the hellfire, depending on where it might be. The final thing, which is a sunnah, is to begin with the right side when you're washing each individual part. First you wash the right hand 3 times, then you wash the left hand 3 times. First you wash the right leg 3 times, then you wash the left leg 3 times. And this is based on the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha, which is narrated by Imam Tirmidhi. كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يحب التيمم ما استطاع في ترجله وتنعله وطهوره. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to love the right hand side in his putting on shoes, and in his combing his hair, and in his purifying himself. This hadith mentions 3 acts. In general, the ulama agree that anything you do, you should always try to do it beginning with the right side, except one thing, which is entering the bathroom. The entering of the bathroom occurs with the left foot, and exiting the masjid occurs with the left foot. So there are 2 acts which actually begin with the left. Otherwise, basically everything you do, actually 3. Also removing clothing. When you remove clothing, you should start with the left and then the right. So when you put clothing on, you begin with the right and then the left, and it's opposite when you remove the clothing. So there are a few acts within our Sharia where the left takes dominance, but otherwise the majority of actions are based on the right. So because the Prophet ﷺ kana yuhibbu, he used to love it, so we love it. We have no choice. We don't decide what we love. We're servants. Whatever our master tells us to love, that's what we love. So the Prophet ﷺ loved it because Allah loved it. And so because the Prophet loved it, we love it. No more debate or discussion. It's over for us. We don't make up our own rulings. We follow the messenger. One more thing is that when you're washing the body parts, it's sunnah to begin with the tips. So if you're washing the hands, to begin with the tip of the hand and work your way to the elbow. If you're wiping the head, to begin with the tip of the head and then work your way back. And if you're washing the feet, to begin with the tip of the toes.